Hi, it's Michael Kerr here, presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, I interview a fellow small business owner or an expert, and they share their stories, their lived experiences, the wins and the losses, and their best advice to help you, the listener, get the most you can from your own business. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. And thanks also to Kerr Capital, supporters of the show. And a very warm welcome back to 2022 for all the Small Business Banter listeners. I hope you enjoyed your break. Coming up right now is the second part of my interview with Sandra Kain from Coles Bay, Tasmania. It's part of the Selling a Regional Business series that we're running over the summer. Sandra picks up here talking about the importance of keeping on driving the business while you're selling the business. It can be a really tricky thing, but it's so important that you keep your foot on the pedal, so to speak. This runs for about 10 minutes. If you missed the first part, search up Small Business Banter in your favourite podcast catcher. But let's go now to Sandra. There's about 10 minutes left in the interview. And coming up in the second half will be a short feature on the challenges that regional owners are having accessing staff. I got Brendan Halliday in talking about how we might deal with that. So let's go to Sandra.
One thing about running the business is that I never got to the point where I felt that I don't want to be here. I loved going to work. I loved doing what I was doing. I worked alongside some colourful people in my life. We've had met some really nice people that have been working for me, and I think that makes it easier as well when you do have some good people working for you. But it is difficult in rural areas and country areas to get staff on board that are reliable and want to be there. A lot of country areas, they're people just looking for part-time work, which makes it a bit difficult.
Yes, never any shortage of challenges.
No,
so,
not at all.
But you'd sum up that initial couple of years as a bit of an adventure. You found out that it was going to be, that finance was an issue and that a lot of buyers were going to be out because you could see that given their age and stage, then they're not going to have they're going to eventually realise that it is a rural town, a regional town. It's a long way to get somewhere, and so the buyers are going to have to be very committed to being in the town and pretty much on their business most of the time. So then that's when we got connected. I think it was about 4 years ago. So we talked. We went through that process that you talked about, which was putting together some information about the business and the town and the opportunities, and also relieving yourself of those requirements to find buyers and to deal with buyers. Can you talk a bit about the process that we went through, just very briefly? So,
yes, I think when we first started, Michael, getting to know the area was really important. Is that when you put the portfolio together, your interest on what was in Coles Bay and on the peninsula, and that was really interesting because it highlighted a lot of the future of the businesses, which was perfect because the businesses were going forward with tourism, and a lot of councils were upgrading and putting in a lot of facilities to advertise the area. And I really didn't think much about that at the time, but I think that was a big bonus in advertising the businesses and where it was going, and especially having the national park set aside. And also, you had the right channels. You had, of course, potential buyers that were there.
We went and found some of those through advertising, and we found some through I guess poking around in the right places. But so then but we worked together for it was 3.5 to 4 years from beginning to end. So for you, call it 6 years really.
Oh yes.
And
yes.
And this is this podcast series is particularly focused on making owners, especially in regional areas, via the voice of other owners, that it does take a lot longer than you think. There are the exceptions where somebody walks into the business, whether it's they've got a sign in the window or not, and says, "Look, we just had enough of wherever we're living. We want to buy something." That happens every now and again, but it's a Tatslotto odds scenario. So this is we've got 6 years and it's it takes its toll, doesn't it? You've got to keep dealing with the day-to-day issues and start to plan what you'd like to do after business is sold, but you can't really be clear or firm about the date that's going to happen.
Definitely not. No.
So what for other sellers or other owners in regional areas, what are the sorts of things you'd encourage them to do? I'm starting with, I think, my experience. We've chatted about this as well. I think there's a point where everybody knows it's time. You go past this point and you go, I've got to do something about it. And you kind of were aware of that. Still took 6 years. So is there, your advice to other owners is it really to take notice of that signal, and then what are the things they should do once they've had that signal?
I personally felt that two things that I did find out in this process of wanting to sell and move on and retire was that at the time I had family working for me, and they were at that time they were running the bakery for me, and I thought, oh, well, wow, they will, and thinking as a parent, they would possibly take on, the bakery, and then I would then have the supermarket to sell. And so after going through the family and realising that none of them were really interested in taking on the businesses was, I think, a major turning point in my life, because you always feel as though maybe the children might like to take on the business, but that wasn't the case. So definitely from then on, it was I was then getting anxious, right, well, then I'm selling.
So it was a case of you could see that it might be a good opportunity, but certainly don't assume that anybody, family, are going to take it on, because there'll be things happening in their lives. So it's not a given that they will, no matter how good the business is.
No. I think they notice the hours that you run your business, what you put in, in your business. And, that 26 years has been my life. But I still enjoyed every moment of it. I loved working there. And they could see that it probably did take its toll, and they go, "No, thank you, Mum and Dad. We'll do our own thing."
So what? So then, outside of family, that's when you start to promote the business, prepare it for sale, and promote it more widely. And
definitely, that was the turning point.
Yeah, and I think, look, that's it's it's an experience that you generally owners will only go through once. Most people, there are serial buyers and sellers of businesses, but in the main, a lot of people will have one business and they'll put, as you just said, put their life into it, and to make sure that you get get out. You can't plan it to the day, you can't even plan it to the year really, but make sure you do get out, and you want to do it well, don't you? Because it's if you don't sell, it's the whole thing just lingers. If and you can be disappointed to miss out on those other things you had planned. So that might be a good point to finish on, I think, Sandra. That's it's been a really great and interesting chat. I love, I'm sure people will hear from you just a great sense of having a business you love, but knowing it's time, doing something about it, and then getting ready to move on, do something else. So you want to just close out with what your life certainly didn't stop after that. What are you involved in now?
Well, my retirement was, I decided to buy a little property down the road, thinking that I certainly need a change and I want to be outside. And we went looking at a property just 15 minutes down the road, and it's amongst the vineyards along the east coast of Tasmania, and we found this little property, and it's just amazing. And we decided that we'd decided to be farmers, so we decided to get some belted Galloway and start breeding, or do a small amount of breeding. It won't be huge, but I've had so much joy in being outside, and it feels as though I've have a new lease of life. Because working inside doors, you're in there, 10, 12 hours, 14 hours sometimes, and forget about what's going on out around you. And so we're doing that, and very happy. So,
but also it's the contrast with being inside to outside. But also, was it obviously you've sold the business, you're out of it. Did you have a period just after that where you wondered what you were going to do tomorrow? Or did you have these other things fill up the gap pretty quickly?
I did wander around for quite a while, and always felt for probably 6 months that there was something that I needed to do, that I needed to, go to the office, do some bookwork, pay some bills, or get on the phone and do some ordering. I felt a little bit lost at first, wandering around, just saying, well, I don't really have to do anything, but I felt as though there was something that I had to do for a while, and that lasted a good 6 months. And
okay, so it's another thing to really factor in, isn't it? Because it's pretty hard to, when you're wound up and excited and involved in running your business, it can suddenly just turn off. So that's something else to think about when you're planning to sell.
Very hard. It is very hard just to turn off, and but I have to admit, working with animals is a lot easier. They don't answer back. You feed them, and you get a lick, and it's rewarding.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Again, thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Sounds good.
So that was my discussion with Sandra Kain. I think you'll agree, a really interesting and personal overview of a 26-year process from starting those businesses to recently selling them. Never really a dull moment, but she was up for the challenge and enjoyed it for the most. I always like to recap, and I think she made those businesses successful through a combination of things, some really practical skills, a desire to do her own thing, a genuine love of what she did, and a lot of good old-fashioned hard work. But even with all that success, you've just heard why the challenges for owners of regional businesses who are thinking about selling are significant. Basically, the selling process is going to take a lot longer than you think. So the key, start earlier. She had some canny advice in there. And I think for owners of regional businesses, but also more broadly small businesses, there were 3 key ones that I took away. Number one, there will be a signal that it's time to sell or a signal that it's time to move on. You need to act on it. Number two, the time frame for selling a seasonal regional business is minimum 3 to 4 years. And from my own direct experience, I'd agree 100% with that. And number three, to increase the chances of selling your business, particularly when the main issue is there's a small pool of buyers for regional businesses, you can't just focus on the business. You need to help focus potential buyers on what's happening in the town or in the region, because it achieves two things. One is, from the business perspective, what's happening in the town, in the region, will help underpin their sense of the viability of the business long term. But also at a personal level, when you buy a business, you've got to move. You want to move to somewhere where you have the services or the lifestyle that you want. So for the potential buyers, you need to draw their attention not just to the business, but to all the great things about the town and the region. So 3 great takeaways from Sandra. We thank her for her time and wish you well in your own business. A very big thanks again to Sandra Kain for sharing her personal insights on, about a 3 or 4 year journey to sell her business. So coming up next week in the last of the interviews in this series of summer series of selling regional businesses is 2-part interview with Russell Spokes from Queenscliff in Victoria, who took a different exit path, a happy one, good ending for him. So dial in for that one next week. But coming up right now, we're going to be talking to Brendan Halliday, who's an expert on recruiting international staff. And we're going to talk about the impact COVID-19 has had on accessing staff from overseas, how that's impacted businesses, savagely impacted businesses, particularly in the regional areas. And he's going to come in and talk about what might be different, what his outlook is for the next 12 months, and what some of the things owners might be able to do now to start finding and recruiting some of these staff in hospitality and related industries. Let's go to Brendan. As I mentioned earlier, really fortunate to have in Brendan Halliday from Southbound Recruitment. We're going to be talking briefly about the issues with recruiting international staff, particularly in hospitality industry. So firstly, Brendan, welcome in.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, look, it's great that we could get you at short notice to have you in, talk about a really topical issue that's been in conversations everywhere. I've been having them lately. I can't find staff, can't find chefs, can't find front of house staff. So look, let's we've got a limited amount of time, but can you just give us a quick snapshot on you and your business?
Sure. Well, Michael, I've been working within international recruitment in skill shortage areas since 2008. In that time, the hospitality industry has always been a very large user of international chefs and other staff members, because there's been a steady, a significant shortage of people in that industry. What we've seen, obviously, over the last few years with coronavirus is that this is creeping into, it's highlighting a lot of other industries as well are really suffering from not being able to have access to the staff that they usually would have access to.
Okay, and look, everywhere you go around the country, but probably is it even more exacerbated in regional areas, do you think, or is it?
It's absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my working life in this space was always at least 75% of my work was in regional locations. So everything's just been amplified.
Yeah. Okay. With we know it's a problem for hospitality, accommodation, tourism businesses. What are but there's broader flow-on effects, aren't there, across, for the broader economy and also for consumers who are out there, on holidays or trying to access some services that can't be staffed properly.
Well, I mean, I'm talking to business owners in the hospitality space who are not opening their businesses 7 days a week. They simply do not have the staff members to do that. So the knock-on effect on that is everywhere. There's a knock-on effect with all the suppliers into those businesses, obviously. There's huge knock-on effects in all the industries. I was having a conversation the other day with somebody who has a manufacturing business in Australia and Vietnam, and they're shutting down their Australian manufacturing arm because they cannot no longer access staff.
I'm not sure if this is, maybe it'll hit home when people, can't get a coffee or a meal at a restaurant in a regional location or a seaside location.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think perhaps it is. Perhaps people are thinking about this more than they ever have been. I know that in my space I don't need to explain to people what I do anymore. Everybody's been talking to anybody in the space. They know how difficult it is at the moment.
Okay. So you're a business owner out in, doesn't matter where you're a business owner and you're struggling to find staff. What can owners do right now? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel in terms of accessing students and international staff who have kind of been the bedrock of a lot of hospitality and tourism industries in past?
Yeah, students I can't really speak of. I've never really worked in the student space so much. That's student space that really was in front of house positions and back of house in the city locations. But as far as accessing, say, kitchen staff, if you're talking about a hospitality business, for instance, absolutely you can start the process now of recruiting and getting visas lodged and putting visas in the Department of Home Affairs, and with the knowledge that those people will be in your business in the next few months. The borders are opening up. Visas are getting processed. So we are now actually actively working for businesses. So businesses can start moving forward and start looking at this as an option if that's what they would like.
Is this something a business owner does themselves or can do themselves, or is it something you clearly do that kind of work, including all the applications?
A business owner, if they had their own employee that they'd recruited themselves and they wanted to sponsor, yes, you can either do it yourself. I would highly recommend not doing that, though. It's always worth engaging a registered migration agent or lawyer to do the paperwork for you. It might cost you a couple of grand more than just the Department of Immigration costs, but it is so worth it. It's a lot of red tape and it's just difficult to do. As far as the recruitment goes, my candidates are based outside of Australia, and we work with those candidates for many months until they're in a position that we can lodge a visa for them and we know that they've got the skills to work in jobs in Australia. I think it's just too difficult for a business owner to be engaging with people on the other side of the world and understanding whether they're going to be able to get a visa, whether they've actually got the skills that they've got, reference checking those people on the other side of the world, getting them skills assessed by Australian bodies. It's a difficult process, and that's what we do for employers. We do that. That's the nature of the business that we're in.
Okay, so it's a two-step process. Even if you were referred to somebody who might be an excellent chef or whatever it might be that you're after, the step one is to recruit. The second step is to get them the visa. So, like a lot of things, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. When it's something you don't do all the time, you look to get experts to help you, and here, time is of the essence. It always is, but it seems to be more particularly pronounced at the moment. If you can get if you're not opening or you've got restricted hours, you just need to get those staff. So, are there people, good quality staff ready to go?
Yeah, there are. And because we've had this situation where people haven't been able to move, not just into Australia, this has been a worldwide stopping of movement of labour around the world. There are a lot of people who are just as keen to be in Australia as they always were. We have many, many, many excellent chefs and cooks who are ready to find positions in Australia. Absolutely regional is an absolute goldmine for people that we're working with. Just for all those regional business owners out there who might think that people coming from overseas would prefer to be in Melbourne or Sydney, it's just not the case with us. People that are coming from overseas want long, stable employment where they can be with the employer for a number of years so they can achieve permanent residency with that employer. And they want their kids to be in school, and they want cheaper living arrangements than living in Sydney or Melbourne.
Yeah,
so regional's an absolute goldmine.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and so Australia remains a favoured destination.
Hugely, hugely.
What we're going to do, Brendan, I mean, it's such an important topic. We're going to have you back in a month or so to go through this in a fuller way. So in terms of just to leave a couple of snapshot thoughts with people, their options are to engage with a migration agent, and you've to
engage with the migration agent if they've got a candidate who they know that is ready to go.
Yep.
That used to be more for when there were the onshore people here who maybe had come here to study and that sort of thing. That's really dried up.
Yeah.
So if they're really looking to get somebody from overseas, rather than trying to go down the path of trying to advertise in another country and then trying to understand how it all works, they're much better to reach out to a business like ours or another in their industry, or we can assist if people need to contact us for other industries. And speak to people who can just simplify the process and make it a lot quicker than it would be otherwise.
Okay, so really start with the recruitment piece, and there are So what's your business? Do you want to just shout out your business name and website as one example of that?
Southbound Recruitment, southboundrecruitment.com.au.
Great to be able to get you in short notice to talk about this really important issue. We'll have you back another time and probably in a month to 6 weeks have a fuller discussion, as I said. Thank you very much, Brendan Halliday from Southbound Recruitment.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Michael.
So that is all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. I continue to be inspired bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. If you want to listen to any past episode, jump onto your podcast platform of choice and search Small Business Banter. There you will find a diverse and fascinating collection of small business owners and experts openly discussing and sharing their experiences. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact me, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it would be great to have you tune in the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.